So 2 years ago, my friend Derek and I drug this Econoline super van out of a hole where it sat for 32 years. It was just 20 feet down that hill. We are back visiting. This thing has been fighting me. Are we here to put it back in the hole where it came, or just letting it know where it was so hopefully it cooperates and will finally be a good running van? I'm Jared, and this is the Questionable Garage. And if you're not familiar with this, this is a 1971 Ford Econoline 200 super van, all the window options. It was the ultimate of work trucks. And yes, it was in a hole for 32 years, and we had it running, and then it sat for another 2 years. So I was doing a small revival after the revival. It was supposed to be a simple carburetor rebuild, clean the fuel tank, and that was it. Well, we got the carburetor rebuilt and got it running. And the 240 smokes, more than all the dirty old grandpas in the cigar lounge. It had 5 miles and not a mile more. So in the very last episode, we had a Ford 300, the big brother of the 240. That's 300 cubic inches in a 6-cylinder. It's a big engine. Makes lots of torque. It's a lot of fun in a van. Rebuilt the cylinder head. We got it painted, got it looking nice and installed. Sort of. I had it in the hole. So today we need to get the transmission in, we need to get that fuel tank finished up, good to go, and all the other little things that will make this van run. So we're not going to get that done here. So let's get back to the shop, try to get this Econoline running right, finally, and see if we can do more than just 5 miles of driving. Look at this fully restored gas tank, just like new. Also, by fully restored, I mean we knocked most of the rust off and coated the outside with some of that N1 from Sweet Patina. And what's really interesting, in the spots of the tank that had absolutely no rust, it didn't stick that good. Remember the last time I was using it and realized and admitted that I'm a dummy and that rust converter needs rust to work? Turns out that's what it does. But one thing I do want to make clear too is if you potentially have a hole in your tank, a rust converter is not going to magically fix it. Don't treat it, replace it. You're not going to get anywhere. So we're putting our sending units and everything back in because we've got most everything we can out. I actually wanted to show you, this is, I believe, a Hemi and Chevy pickup. And what's interesting is this is a 5/16 pickup and this is a 5/16 sock, but they didn't quite play well together. It wasn't sliding on. This is designed for a plastic. So get you a tapered punch so you can just ever so slightly, gently open this metal collar. I set it down on a vise, tapped it in, because this does need to fit tight on there. And then I'm reusing O-rings. They shrink when they're out a little bit. So these are old O-rings, so you can't just yank them like you would a new one. So just very gently work the O-ring a little bit, And then again, I'm using the Aviation N1 seal on both sides of this gasket. It's fuel safe. Will get stuck on your skin really good for a really long time. And again, we're doing all this because every indicator and sign is this tank's good. It's got a little bit of stuff in there, but nothing super substantial. Let's see if that's opened enough. No, a little bit more, and then we'll give it one more round. Slack on the outside. I believe it was this way. I have no clue why I've just not been able to get this stupid Ford pickup. Ordered 2 different places, and it just never shows up. And what was interesting is, for some reason, O'Reilly didn't have the listing, but what I really appreciate, shout out to my Gainesville store, Lori and Vic and all the guys there, Jacob, as well as my Cornelia store guys, they know how to use their parts catalog. So I had on the Snyder needing that oil filter, the guy at Cornelia, we figured out the thread pitch and O-ring diameters, and he used the parts catalog to find a filter that wasn't $70 and was like $6 and in stock. Lori confirmed what size tubing diameter I needed and was able to use the parts catalog to find what we needed. I love people good at their job. Now we just need them to go back to like usable plastic bags. Feels like someone made the decision that, hey, if we use thin plastic bags, we can save money. Except now they have to use 2 or 3 for each thing. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Because grocery stores did it all too. And now we have to use 36 bags to get the equivalent of 1. Alright, well, once this fully cured, well, it takes a while to fully cure. Once it gets a little bit drier, we'll be able to get our fuel tank in. I've gone ahead and blown out the line front to back. It is clean, so we know that's good. They're still, putting the whole rest of the engine together, get it fired up, then we can get our big block up and running. It is really nuts to stop and think about how big of a straight 6 that is. So the coveted Mustang, the 5.0 Vanilla Ice in his drop top Stang, 302 cubic inches, 5 liters. This is a straight 6, 2 less cylinders, 300 cubic inches and 4.9 liters. Like it's a really big engine.
Figured I'd give you a quick update on what all we've got going on. One thing I did is we've got an alternator back in and connected, but it is not the original one to the van. That's this one. And if you listen, that's incredibly crunchy. I think the brushes are probably stuck, so that's not going to do any charging. So the one off of the truck, the F-150 engine or F-100, turned really good. Got our upper radiator hose on, but when I went to line up our heater core hoses, this doesn't quite reach anymore. This water pump has a shorter nipple on it, but it's not too bad. There's one bolt, and it goes right here to the heater core. We did just replace them, but top one will be fine. Put a clamp on that. Run a new section of that lower hose. That'll be good. I need to make sure we are still top dead center down there, and we can finalize dropping in a distributor and putting in spark plugs, and then decide what versions of the carburetors we're going to put on this thing. We're close to running. Full fuel system's back in it, and fuel pump's ready to be connected. Plumbed that line out, cleaned it. There's no dirt in it. The tank is clean, so I think we're close to this like being a real working vehicle, which is kind of cool. Never mind that seat and, other stuff. I got to pull a Mopar rear end out of it still. But we're going to have a running 300 really soon. Big block, right? Well, we were making some pretty solid progress. We got our plugs in, ran the wire. We're painting our coil bracket so we can get that mounted. Distributors drop down. Getting the fuel pump on. But if we notice, apparently the base is ever so slightly different. This has got an extra hole cut in it. I don't know. So I need to run and find a fuel pump that's gonna cover that whole area. I'm not sure why it's different, but it is. It's sealed on the 240, just not on our 300, because once we get that on, we can finally get a carburetor on this thing and fire it up, and then bleed brakes and go for a drive, hopefully with much less catching on fire. Well, you see that coolant running out? Our thermostat gasket apparently didn't want to seal up. Joy. Ford, I'm trying to do good things. Work a little bit with me. Come on, buddy. The why is always important. So, let me get you in the hole. So, the gasket shifts around a little too much, and this side is actually even too small. Where I can push in right there, it's going inside the area. So that actual little section of it wasn't even sealed at all. Pull the gasket off. That hole, not quite right. And it was just leaking right around there and out and onto the ground. So, we're also waiting for the water pump, or fuel pump. Might need to try to track down a different thermostat gasket so we can get that to stop leaking coolant. Update. Apparently a 300 thermostat housing has a little more material to it. I don't know if the holes were that much sloppier than the 240s, because that didn't leak on our 240 head, but I went ahead and made a trace. It's kind of hard to tell, but like I set it in place and scratched, and it goes over the top of the hole in that cylinder head. So it doesn't matter how many gaskets we put on it, it's gonna leak. So I had this guy sitting around forever, stole the nipple off the water pump, got that tightened in there, so gasket with this, and maybe our water leak's fixed. Maybe. If that's any indication how things are currently going, I wonder about cars sometimes. I really do. I don't get it. We're doing good things. We're giving you 60 extra cubic inches, Supervan. But I need to pull that all back apart, I guess, and really go at it with a straight edge. And figure out why we got a coolant leak there. Also, nobody has a gasket in stock. Closest one is 3 hours away. So I have a new tool that I'm not ready to use and make the video on, but I might just take it all out of the box and get it working in the morning to solve this problem. Maybe. We'll see. It was meant to be something funny later on about using really expensive stuff to make gaskets. $3 gaskets that we can't get. Fuel pump should be in stock now, or at the store, so I can go pick up a fuel pump, and then hopefully we can get the coolant to stay in the engine and get it running. I really would like to drive the Supervan and have it not catch fire and go more than 4 miles. That's a low bar, Ford. We can do it. Minimal fires, 6 miles. Those are two things I believe the Ford can do. Maybe. Who would have thought a thermostat gasket would be this complicated? I've got a couple more, and they all leak. I know why they're leaking. No matter how I fidget them, they leak. So let me show you. This is the Felpro, the only one you can get right now. And you can kind of see, you line things up, there's just a lot of potential movement in the bolts. But you can see there's a lot more material here. And on the 300 head, what we were running into is that wasn't fully shrouding it. But we take this gasket and we line it up nice and good here, and it looks good. But it is moving around so much, even when I glue it, you can see we get really kind of close there, but on the cylinder head, this is overlapping. It is not pinching completely off. Mahle made a perfect gasket that was the full size of that new flange, and it's only $1.99, but it's discontinued and doesn't exist anywhere in the world. That's our only option. So we have to come up with our own solution, and I think it's gonna be a little bit of fun. Get a big box. Unpack big box. Look at the instructions. Remove protective film. Remove the protective film. Set up the laser. Take a picture of the housing. Import it into Adobe Photoshop, then Adobe Illustrator, then Creality Falcon software, and scale. Press cut. Remove the perfectly cut gasket, but realize the scale was wrong. Get the scale off a third time, and try again. Make the middle hole too big. Cut a fourth one. Nail it on your sixth try, or just cut it out by hand. Ask your friend what he thinks.
I approve. Why do in one step what you could do in 15?
All right, we're still missing a couple stuff to actually fire it. A new thermostat housing. We're going to talk about that after our amazing laser cutting. But I want to make sure all our electrical is still working. It should. Spin it over a little bit, let it prime up some oil. And then there's that one little white wire. I did put just the electric choke pot from the 300 distributor, and we're still running the rebuilt 240. So I need to give that 12 volt, but, oh, man, that's turning over strong. That has some thump. All right, well, let me just let the battery keep charging. I'm gonna check out for my choke stuff over there, and soon, we're gonna hopefully have the Ford running. It doesn't like me, but we're seeing this through. Don't worry, I'm not putting you back to pasture again. At least not yet. We're gonna get to the end, Super Van. All right, GoPro running, battery charger hooked up, coolant all over the floor. Thank you. I poured some gas in the carb. I did crank it over enough to try to get some fuel here as well. With the ignition disconnected. So I got fuel there. I realized this is an advance and retard distributor. We don't need the retard. We're not trying to do emissions or anything, so we have just the one nipple there. I'm gonna break my rule. Give her that. Key on. Lifter to pump up, but it's running. Come on, where'd my fuel go? Am I all out of gas? You were pumping without running, but it runs. Not the best yet. Let's see. Also, I need to shut it off. The fan is just blowing coolant in our face. But it at least runs. I don't know if I'll say it runs good yet, but it's starting to get fuel from the tank. The carburetor seems to be working. The good news too is when you have coolant all over the ground, you can't tell if it's leaking anything else. So we're gonna go with it's not leaking anything other than the known coolant leak. That is just a win all around, guys. It runs. Now I need to make it drive. There's a few more steps to get to the driving part, but it seems to be okay. Maybe. Well, if you are ever doing old van stuff, or really any Ford stuff, and you run into the same problem I have, that's your solution. 84913. Also, if you're this far into Ford stuff, you probably already knew that there is a different thermostat housing for that particular engine. Even though it's carbureted, it's early EFI, so it has a slight split ear housing. And what makes me feel good is I can prove we should not be leaking anymore. When I say that, so this is my oversized gasket that we laser cut. It was really cool. And you can kind of see this little area where it doesn't overlap. So if we take this gasket, line her up, one hole, 2 hole. Look at that. We're putting coolant in this thing and we're gonna drive it today. It's amazing how just sometimes the simplest things just will kick your butt. I didn't know any better. And odds are there's times you're working on something and you don't know. And you're gonna make a mistake and something so obvious is gonna be just out of sight. Don't get discouraged. I'm professional and I have that same problem. So, you know, we are blessed to have the internet. There's a lot of really good stuff out there. There's bad stuff out there and dumb ideas, but there is a lot of information. And that's how I finally figured out what the heck I had going on. So I don't know if I've ever been happier to put coolant in an engine and for it to actually stay there. So that means we can actually let this thing get warm and dial in some timing. So she's been sitting. We got a 1 a pump and a 2 a pump. Ow. That's solid and hurts, believe it or not. I need to figure out that little bit of a noise, but that thing fired up good. I think it might be a rocker tapping the valve cover a little bit. Because if you remember, the baffles were kind of close. Those baffles are a little bit close to the rockers, so I wonder. Should probably replace that hose too. But I'm gonna open the door, let this thing warm up a little bit. Some cars just fight a little bit, you know? It wasn't that big a fight to get out of the hole, but making it roadworthy, that's where it decided to fight us. But we're almost there. It drove out. The GoPro, I don't know when the GoPro died moving out, but we have all our gears, reverse, first, second, and third. Brakes are working, and it doesn't just instantly cut out and die anytime you look at the throttle. Also, that tap, I've gone around it with a stethoscope. I think it's just an exhaust echo. Like, nothing is indicating an actual physical knot. Also, not the best thing to do, but if you look at the paint burning off the manifold, because I was lazy when I painted the engine, all of our cylinders seem to be firing pretty good. So, I think the Econoline is finally playing ball a little bit, which makes me feel good. I want it running good. I want it to be able to stop and make sure it finds someone that loves it as much as it doesn't love you. But I'm kind of looking forward to a drive with potentially less fire now. Also, unlike our 240 friend that was pumping so much smoke out of there, it looked like a stunt plane with a smoke machine on. We've got almost zero blow-by. So, we got ourselves a good core engine. So that means we got ourselves that good base engine. And we just need to fine tune a little and drive. We're gonna drive it. Well, I figured before we went down the road, I'll, drive it around the complex. It's nice having brakes. They still could use a little bit of bleeding. Dropped into lower gates. Uh-oh. There we go. Now we're at first. We dropped somehow kind of like in the 3 and 4.
circuit's a little leaky.
Well, all right, that was a massive success. We have driven 10 miles. No fires, no worries about going 40 miles an hour. We maybe went a little faster than that, but my time with it is coming to an end. We had big plans for a build. I've got a ton of plans. Derek had tons of plans. I wanted to do a quick one episode, get it revived and running and ready for someone else. And we did get a Ford 300 swapped in to replace that 240 cubic inch inline six, rebuilt that cylinder head, and we have since fully rebuilt the bottom end with our tractor oil-based enamel paint. So that is fully refinished, and honestly, driving it the 10 miles, I had a ton of fun with Derek. The fires, all of that, that was great, but driving this thing close to perfectly good was a lot of fun. This thing is gonna make someone incredibly happy. I don't know who it's gonna be. I've got a lot of you emailed, and that's what I'm gonna just say. I am gonna sell it. I have way too much money in it. I am not gonna make it back. I have a price. A lot of you already emailed me. Email me, Jared at the Questionable Garage, if you'd like to buy it. I'm just going down the line. You're gonna, now that it runs and I know what we have, I'll let you know. We're gonna find out who's gonna get it. And aside from a steering bushing that you can't buy, it's ready for a power tour. It's ready for a cross-country drive. I'm not gonna tell you to drive it without the bushing, but you probably could. Just realize that you have to plan, you know, a quarter mile ahead of every steering input. This thing is a survivor. It's been in North Georgia its whole life. Obviously, it's probably gonna go somewhere else, but it's a cool van. I get it, Ford guys. I get why some of you like these things. So hopefully it finds a good home. Hopefully you had some fun, learned a little bit while we got working on it, because I've got lots of other cars that were supposed to be done that the Econoline took their spot. So I'm gonna be busy in the shop wrenching. Hopefully you guys are making some progress on your projects in your shops as well. If not, get out there and put one bolt in, because that's one more bolt that's in it that wasn't. I'm Jared, reminding you guys to always make questionable choices and don't go 70 miles an hour in a van with a broken steering idler. That's stupid, not questionable. We'll see you.